Boom.
Boom.
Like a boss.
Welcome. For some time, I've actually been trying to get Arion to teach a class on making money. It's nice to finally get this to happen. I think we'll just dive right into it and have our panel introduce themselves.
All right, I'll go first. Arion the Wanderer from Dragon's Lair and Antir. I didn't want to do a moneyer class all by myself since there are some really fantastic other people out there. So I invited them along.
Excellent. We'll have the next person.
Should I jump in? Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Master Emmerich of Vockerfell. I'm a Westie and kind of one of those people that really started way back in the boonies to push money and met some great people along the way, and that kind of partnered up with me, and I think the end results has been money to spread that. I'm still staying busy. I make coins now, I guess you could say professionally. It's what I do for a living.
Awesome, thank you. And our last panelist.
Hi, I'm Darien Lebreton, Master Darien, formerly of Antir, then Kaid, then North Shield, and then the Midrealm. I was laureled in Kaid about 11 years ago for moneying. Been doing this a while, and yeah, hopefully have some fun things to talk about.
I would like to hop in and mention that Master Emmerich is probably the father of moneying in the SCA.
Yeah. And Arion and I started right around the same time, learning from the same person out at Antir, Master Jan Kanul, about 15 years ago. Yeah.
Great.
There's definitely been a while.
Yeah.
Also, and I do know that there's other moneyers in the class, and I'm sure that we'll be hearing from them as the class goes on. But we want to start it off with just our three panelists, and I'm sure our class will add things as we go along. So welcome. I guess my biggest question is, I'm interested in the money that you guys are creating, and if I wanted to get involved in it, what's the best way of me exploring creating money in the SCA?
Join a guild,
or start one, depending on where you live.
It's often a question of come and see. One of the best ways to learn, of course, is to be there, it first person.
Oh yeah, definitely.
and we've got a Facebook group, Interkingdom Moneyers Guild, which has a wealth of information.
Yeah, we have people there from all over the world and throughout the SCA, and a wide array of documents, everything from people's research notes, tons of pictures, class handouts, lots and lots of options. So yeah, I would agree with what Master Emmerich and Master Arion said. Hands-on is always the best, but in some places that's not possible. And so things like the Facebook group and some of the resources that people like us have created can help people get started. Moneying is a bit of a challenging art just in terms of the infrastructure you have to sort of build up to be able to successfully strike coins. But lots of us have done it, and there are lots of opinions on the best ways to do it. We're all happy to help people get started on that road. We've all taught many intro classes and given away tools and all that good stuff.
And we all still have all of our fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there I saw that they had.
But I think
Go ahead, James.
I was just going to say I'm pretty convinced at this point that my thumbs are purely.
Your audio was cutting out. what I was saying is at a Ren fair, I watched they had a giant metal hammer on pulleys that they hoist into the air, and it would, dramatically drop down and strike the coin. And yeah, I could see with a setup like that how easy it would be to lose a finger. But I don't think you guys are using quite the same setup.
I
No.
do actually have a drop hammer, but I'm still working to get it functional.
I was,
Yeah, the drop hammers, as you see.
I have
I'd
one
see
as
them-
well, but it's an iffy instrument at times.
Yeah.
I
Go for
can imagine that.
And there's very little evidence they were used in period to strike coins or coin-like objects. There's some evidence for drop hammers, but they were, at best very uncommon. At the very end of our period, you start seeing fly presses, which are a screw press with a very steep screw. So you can throw the handle and it goes shebang. And there is an account from Cellini upon his visit to a mint where he said that there wasn't a worker there who wasn't missing at least one finger from that particular machine. The method that most of us use, which is just holding the dies and swinging a hammer, is actually extremely safe. So
And much quicker than a drop hammer.
yes, much quicker than a drop hammer. So
After many years of wear using a hammer, though, I was joking that my thumbs are mostly ornamental now. That's kind of how it feels.
yeah.
Oh yeah. I work on a farm, and so some of the equipment that I use, I feel the vibrations through my hands, even like a day later. So yeah, I can imagine striking. What was it? 10,000 coins? Yeah, I can imagine. You're gonna feel that for a few days, at least at our age. So
It's a good small project.
Yeah, so in the Moneyers Guild of Vontier, we have a little deal that if you're holding the die and someone hits you, we change places.
Yeah, I've taken that same thing everywhere I've gone, and it tends to reduce errors dramatically. I have been hit a couple of times, but it's a couple of times over hundreds of thousands of coins.
Oh,
So
Yeah, it's really once you get the technique down, it's really pretty safe. It's not like you're swinging as far over your head as you possibly can.
let's go back. Let's talk about how you guys have. I mean, you talked about Master Jan, and I'm kind of curious how you guys actually got started and what drew you into doing this. This is your SCA career.
I start that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it. Okay, so many years ago, when I joined the society, I noticed that everyone was doing something. I've outlined this in my little Moneyers handbook that I wrote a long time ago. And that is that, everyone's doing something. So I wanted to find something to do. And one of the first things I ran across was coin making, and this thin little book that said, yes, coins made in the Middle Ages, things like that. So I really, really wanted to do that. But it took a good 2 years of hard research to get there. And everything was from the ground up. I didn't have anyone to teach me. All I had was books and an idea. And then I would run across a few people that said, yeah, we tried to make coins, but we were very successful, and we're using big pieces of railroad and all kinds of strange materials. But after you kind of get the core idea down, the first coin I had was a coin that was made by an Eastern coin maker for Duke Frederick of Holland, and he gave me this coin. And he said, "Okay, here you go. This was done by a guy on the East Coast, and when you can do at least this, you're there." And so I studied this thing under lenses, and I read and I read and I read, and eventually I experimented, and then it starts to snowball. And after a while, then you find other people. Like I ran into Master Jan, and between the two of us, we kind of worked things out. He had worked out things on his own. I had worked out things on my own, and then together we kind of, we got even better ideas. and he was a little more advanced than I was. He's a better artist than I ever probably will be, but it's like iron sharpens iron, like men sharpen men, they say. So you kind of, you can bounce ideas off other people, and it builds, it evolves, but it requires experimentation if you're starting from the ground up. Otherwise, we're at a point now where you can stand on the shoulders of other people and experiment and go even further. And that's an excellent thing. But in the beginning, it was tough. You really had to start from the ground up.
Yeah, when I started, I had the benefit of 20 years of Emmerich and Jan's experience. So all the mistakes that they made, I didn't have to make because they had made them, and their teaching was past that point. Jan started me on high relief carving on my second die, because I wanted to do it, and he said, I know how to do that here. And he stepped me through it. So instead of having to struggle for 20 years to learn it, it was there.
Yeah. And we're glad that you are doing high relief too, by the way.
Let me do this. I'd like to do a screen share here. I've got some pictures of Jan. This is a guy we would all love to have in the room right now, really.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here we are, the Moneyer of Silverberg, Master Jan Canoli. All right, there we go.
There we go.
That is Jan, just a amazing little fellow that was so incredibly skilled. This is him. This is how you strike coins. This is him striking a coin with Chandra holding at Antir Westwar. There's Darien.
Yep.
There's Jan. There's me. There's Bill and Armin LaForce. This was a Portland Moneyer show that we were invited to, that Jan wanted to demonstrate how to hot strike Greek coins. Red hot Greek coins moved to a die and struck. And this is the coin that he made. It's freaking amazing.
Yeah, I think he told me he spent 250 hours engraving that.
Yep, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Now this is one of the most challenging styles of coins to make. So not all coins take that amount of work, but this is sort of one of the pinnacles of our art, as it were.
Yeah. And then here he is next to, he had a midlife crisis. And when most people have midlife crisis, they go buy a Ferrari. He went and bought this instead.
There's a little fly press.
And then here he is with a small collection of some of his punches that he handmade. And here he is. This is who he really was. This is a guy who was a hippie anti-war protester who made commemorative coins for Antir Westwar.
Built his own house in the woods, in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
So I'm going to flip through a couple of his coins just to show you his work. This is a funny one. It was for Emmerich and Kaya, and it's pretty clear. It's like, here's the reason I'm king. You see that right there? And I want to point out that the face, this is a penny-sized coin. The face is incredibly detailed. Look at the detail here. Look at the detail on his hand. I mean, I can't do that kind of work.
Neither can I.
And then here, this is all punch work. He made the punches here. After studying this coin, the Prager Groschen, studying it over and over and over again, going through iteration after iteration to figure out how it was made, until he finally made individual punches for this. The crown is a punch, the head is a punch, all of these are one punch. The laurel wreath is a punch, the arms are a punch, the body is a punch, the tail is two punches, and the feet are a different punch. And that's how that coin was made. And it was that much research to figure it out. And then this is a 40 year, it's a Bracteate, incredibly thin, one-sided coin that Darien loves.
Yes. Literally the thickness of a sheet of paper, about a 1/5 of a millimeter.
Yep.
Now I've got a question. You talk about multiple punches. Are you saying that that coin was struck several different times, just with each punch?
No, the die was what you start when you do this. You punch the body as one punch on the die, and then depending on the order you go, you usually do these. Then you punch the head. So you're putting all this on the die, but you have to do individual punches, and you have to line it up pretty carefully because I have his punches, and it took me quite a while to get them in the right order.
It was beautiful work.
I
Yeah.
saw in the chat someone asked how large that laurel wreath was, and someone replied that it's 2 millimeters.
That's my
Right.
guess. I haven't measured it, but approximately.
Yeah, 2 millimeters is about right, and it's
Okay.
just freaking awesome.
Yes.
All right.
And the overall size of the diameter of the coin is 1 inch.
Yeah.
So
Right.
So towards the end of his life, Jan wanted to start studying how the Greeks made dies, and we started casting a bunch of experimental tin bronze dies. And there is some research on this, and the dies that they made were pretty damn crude. But of course, it being Jan, he was not going to do anything crude. He was going to do a head of Roma, an amazing detail again. And then on the other side, just for humor, you have the Discori, and any moneyer, when you look at this, will know that what it's going to say on the coin is Amor, rather than Roma. He did it backwards just for fun. I love you. And then he's really well known for the barracks, the St. Hildegards coins. This one is Elfrida MZB Marion Zimmer Bradley. She was in the SCA for a while, and this is one of his. This is Byzantine style. These are big, heavy coppers, so they're chunky coins. And then here is what he considered his best work. It's written in Tangwar because, of course, being Jan, he studied Tangwar, and he realized that Tolkien hadn't quite finished the alphabet, so he did. Here is the missing scale. The detail on this, the house on fire. And then when you come over here and look at the other side, there's a person in the window. There's a person here. There's a person across the street. It's the detail is just mind-boggling. None of us could ever do this. So that's, I wanted to walk you through who Jan was and some of his work. I'm going to stop the screen share here and go back to talking for a while.
Yeah, getting back to that, how did we get started? Similarly, I was at an event just walking around looking for something to do since I had sort of gotten out of armored fighting for a while, and saw this guy swinging a hammer and making a bunch of noise. And thought, well, what's going on there? Walked up a little closer and saw he was making coins, and I thought, this is, I didn't even know you could do that, right? And later that day, I was sitting in his booth, pounding on a little sheet of pewter, getting taking my first steps. And within 6 months, I'd made my first project, cut a die with Master Emmerich's help as well at Antir Westwar, finished that project, made some coins for a friend of mine who was king of a different kingdom at Pensick that year. And it's just been sort of constant ever since.
Yeah, when I had the same story, I saw Jan sitting there and I walked over and looked at, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to do this. I said, I want to cut a coin die. And he said, okay, first you have to pour an ingot. And then you have to, no, I want to cut a coin die. No, first you have to pour the ingot.
Baby steps.
So the way he taught, and I think Emmerich teaches,
he
a lot of us,
was like that.
yeah, I think a lot of us are the same
Was
way. And when we teach, it's we want to teach all the steps that they did back in the day. So you start with an ingot and you hammer it out to 0.7 millimeters thick, and then you hand cut out the coin blanks.
Yeah, I've drifted a little bit from that over the years. I've taught a number of classes where I provide all the tools and get people started in die cutting right away. And there's pluses and minuses to both approaches. One of the things I found with doing that approach is that the people, the percentage of people who stick on and do a second coin die is very, very low. And you hear this refrain in a lot of arts and activities throughout the SCA that it can be a large time and even monetary investment, to provide these sort of classes, and having that sort of low return, as it were, with few people sticking around can be tough. So this is one of the reasons I think that organizations like guilds can be very effective at attracting people who want to do the thing sort of more long term. I mean, if somebody wants to cut 1 or 2 coin dies and then never do it again, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think all of us are happy to help people who want to do that. But once a group has critical mass of enough people to sustain a series of projects, and so it's not just one person teaching all the time, or producing all the dies all the time, it makes that much easier to do. So, for example, the last in-person moneying class I taught in the before times, I think there were 3 of us teaching. So, we had the same number of students that I would normally do, but there were 3 different moneyers. So every student got more time. No individual was burdened with doing the entire thing themselves. Sort of spread the love around.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
So, Darian, you had
I don't think I've had an apprentice in 4 years.
Yeah, Darian, you had a little project.
Sorry, there's a bit of lag on my end. So.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
You had a little project, like 20,000 coins or something struck?
Not quite 20,000, but I've got my own little mini presentation here I can share with some pictures and things.
Cool.
Just some pictures, a handful of things that'll be. So first I want to say my first step into, okay, a little context. Most moneyers in the SCA generally rarely produce more than a few hundred coins at any given project. My first big project was when I was still living in Ontario, and I did 1,000 coins for a gambling league for a friend. And I thought, wow, this is this huge thing. It took me weeks to do. Big, this amazing project. Then I moved to North Shield. And in North Shield, a couple of years before I arrived, they had done 10,000 pennies for their crown who was going to Pennsic. And this blew my mind. I had no idea that this was even possible. When you start getting to projects of that magnitude, things get a lot more complex. It's a lot more time, a lot more hammer strikes, a lot more energy, and you have to think through things like, maybe I need to harden my coin dies, maybe I need to buy blanks rather than make them, that sort of thing. And there's a whole spectrum of possibilities that I can talk about a little bit here. But I just wanted to share some pictures of what a large amount of coins even looks like. This counting cloth was made by Master Emmerich's wife for me. And on the left here is one of my more typical projects these days, which is about 4,000 coins. Made for a mid-Rome king going down to Gulf Wars. On the right is a batch of 5,000 coins I made for my barony a couple of years ago. And in this case, the bottom die of that set has seen over 15,000 strikes, which is a lot. It's certainly the most I have of any individual die. It's still only about half of what my current estimate based on the research I've read for a medieval coin die. The most recent die studies I've gone through in detail suggest that a bottom die in period would last around 35,000 strikes and a top die around 17,000 strikes. Obviously, the top die wears out sooner because you're hitting it with a hammer. It mushrooms out as we know. So the left picture here is the first set I did for the barony, so 8,000 pennies. It's just this mound of coins. And on the right was sort of the project that I led, of which many people took part, where we did 50 pounds for SCA 50 year. A pound of pennies is 240 pennies. So 50 pounds is 12,000 coins. We decided to strike them in brass because we're insane. Brass is a very hard metal, and it takes quite a lot of force. We all used 6-pound hammers, which is I typically will use a 4-pound hammer with most of my striking. 6-pound hammers, 50% more mass. And all of our dies were hardened and had to be hit quite hard. The pile of coins there on the right is about 4 inches deep in the middle. So, we provided the crown with this literal wealth that they distributed at 50 year to the known world. It was a really cool thing. I'll come back to that picture actually. These are the dies, the bottom dies we used in that project after it was done. These are hardened steel dies, and you can see that the top two, so this die and this die, show almost zero wear. The faces still are quite crisp. If you look closely, you can still see the deformation around the punchwork where the punch has pushed the metal up into sort of a cupped shape. None of that is worn away. The bottom die, the hardening didn't go quite as well, and it has a little bit more wear. But each of these dies saw around 4,000 strikes. I had a set. Master Eldred had a set, and Master Bartel Fitzneel had a set, and each of them saw around 4,000 strikes. So why would you even want to harden dies? Well, if you don't harden dies, they will get on projects of these magnitude, they will get destroyed. So similarly to striking a very large number of coins, some of us also work in very hard metals. The North Shield Guild in particular is well known for its use of billin, which is a low silver alloy, so about 20% silver, 80% copper. It's extremely hard. These are some dies I made for one of their projects. They're halfpenny sized. The picture on the left shows the die as I had completed it. It's all nice and crisp and sharp. And on the right, after only 500 strikes. So 500 strikes of this very hard material on unhardened dies completely obliterated the image. Now, that was kind of a lot of information. You don't necessarily have to do these things. These large projects are sort of a whole nother animal, right? Hardening dies is a whole nother animal. But the resources are there. I learned a lot of the skills necessary for that from Master Bart, and then have sort of, taken it my own direction and done some of my own, advanced it in my own way, as it were. But the people with the expertise are out there if you want to do a big stupid project. The other thing I'll say about these big stupid projects is it really helps to have multiple people involved. So here's an example of a project. This is actually two separate projects kind of combined. On the left is just showing strips of copper we made for the Mid-Realm 50-year project. That was only a 4,000 coin project, but it was still fairly big by SCA standards. And for that project, we had people throughout the kingdom make their own sets of dies to a standard. And then I and a couple of helpers produced blanks and sent them to those people. And then everybody showed up at the event with all of their struck coins. So we had about half a dozen moneyers across the kingdom, each making 500 to 1,200-ish coins. And collected them all at the event, presented them in court. That was very cool. Everybody got to be involved in a way that was really personal. So we had multiple issues of the same design. It's very neat. And on the right is just an example of sort of the how I kind of communicate this to other people. This just shows some examples of me cutting sort of the model die for a similar project, where it's like, okay, here's all the measurements. Here are all the details of the design. Here's the tools you're going to need, etc. And so, when I do these big projects, I tend to make just a 2 or 3 page PDF with instructions, basically, saying, going through all these things so that we end up with coins that kind of look the same-ish. And yeah, I think that's it. Largest coin striking projects in the SCAs that I'm aware of, there was the North Shield 10,000 in around 2010. Then we did the 12,000 for 50 year. Then in the mid-realm, I ran a project where we did 13,518 for Pennsic, 47. And then I've done 15,000 for my Barony.
Darian, we have a question in the chat. In all of your experience, what number of folks, the chat just went away. What number of folks make up a stable guild, one able to hold up long term?
That is a great question. And I think this is one that all of us can talk to, because there's a lot of different ways to do a guild. I've been either guild master or a sort of senior member in 4 different guilds now. The Antir Guild. I ran a guild in Caid that died pretty much the instant I left. The North Shield Guild and the Mid-Realm Moneyers Guild. And each of those guilds is a little different. I think that the number of folks is kind of a function of who the people are. If you have a small number of dedicated artisans, you can get away with running a guild with just 3, 4, or 5 members. If you have people that aren't able or willing to produce dies kind of at the drop of a hat, then a larger number of people is helpful. I think the Mid-Realm Guild has something like 50 some members now, with most of those people not having cut more than 1 die. We have around half a dozen that are, have done multiple dies, are willing to do more dies. It only takes 1 person to make coins, but that if you're the only person making coins, you can burn out pretty quickly. So it really helps to have other people involved. It really, really helps to have other people cutting dies. Striking is a big part of the process effort-wise, and financially, just with the materials. But if you're the only person cutting dies, every few months you have a big project you have to do all on your own. In terms of the die cutting is what takes the most amount of time. Is what I'm trying to get across. And having multiple people to spread that load around really helps. So yeah, I think when Arion and I were in the Antir Guild together, there were 4 or 5 of us that would cut dies on a regular basis. North Shield, there were around that number as well. There was Bart, Eldred, myself as sort of the main die cutters, and then there were a few other people that did the occasional project. And then here in the Mid-Realm is a little bit bigger. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Curious what Arion and Master Emmerich have to say.
Emmerich, you want to give it a shot and see if we can hear you?
Okay, how about that? Let's. I know I'm getting a little bit of lag, but we bought a farm in May, and I am up in the hills, so it's not always good. Let's put it that way. Guilds, yeah. I've seen the Western Guild go up and down and sideways, any number of ways things can go. I'm currently, over the last 4 years, not an active participant in the Western Guild. I'm caring for elderly in-laws and things like that. But I still have some contacts, and they're still alive and thriving. I think there are probably 8 or 10 active members currently that I'm aware of. Time and traditions changed, but I remember hitting high points wherein we had as many as a dozen apprentices, 6 or 8 journeymen, 3 masters going, and things just spreading throughout the kingdom. The thing is, though, people will naturally gravitate to where they feel the most comfortable. Strike things. You'll have people that just want to hang out and make blanks. You should give them that opportunity. Of course, you should also maybe push them to learn. And that was always part of the process that we had here in the West, was you went through all the stages and you learned how, so that in the end, much like fighting, when I got into fighting, I wanted to know just enough that I could impart that information to someone else. And that was the goal that we made for every member when they came to the guild. You want to be able to make sure that they know the entire process. And once they reach a journeyman or fellow status, that they can impart that wisdom to someone else. As far as keeping things going, yeah, you can get bogged down if one person's cutting dies all the time. You can get burnt out really quickly. But the truth of the matter is, I have found that even the people that only participated nominally for a short time, really kind of stuck with them. And if they weren't actively being part of the guild and doing something, as far as the guild went, and creating, we have 3 crowns a year, so they're making 3 sets of coins per year, bare minimum. They would take those skills and they'd transfer them into something else, but they would still come and hang out. we had a thing where, and participate in the march up to the thrones to distribute the coins. And you would have people, we had a whole string of people show up because they still felt a part of it. And that was a good thing. You have to be caring enough as a leader to go in and put a hand on a shoulder to keep these people a part of what's going on. And they come in and they go out and then they come back sometimes. And so it's that fellowship, that bond that you can have with folks and keep it going. It's not easy to do. And sometimes you'll have a serious falling out between individuals. But for the most part, I think we're in the SCA because we like that kind of fellowship and brotherhood. And so, my brother and sister moneyers out there, I still think of them all as family, much like the SCA. And they still contact me and ask questions. They want to hang out sometimes. It's just this bonding that can happen, but you gotta be a good leader too if you're gonna lead something like that to make it happen. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for some trouble.
Yeah, and for our guild in Ontier, we've got, well, before the pandemic, we had 3 people, including myself, that would show up to almost anything. We had one guy who just wanted to swing a hammer. So you want to do a dice? I want to swing a hammer. Okay, and he was good at swinging a hammer. I've got 4 people waiting for the plague to stop because they want me to teach them. I have one fellow here, Saif, sitting down there by himself that I've never actually met in person, but I've taught him, Emmerich's taught him, Darien has probably had a hand in teaching him, and he is now a laurel in moneying, and he did it all remotely for the most part. So
I've met Saif.
And to me, that is awesome because I'm not sure I could learn that way. Can we pop Saif up and have him have something to say here?
He was a patient.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I pretty much learned remotely. I found the Moneyers Guild. I was interested in coins. I was looking for something largesse to hand out to folks. And I decided on coins, and that's when I found the old Yahoo group, and I struck up a friendship with Emmerich. And then through Emmerich, it was Arion and Darien and Eldridge and Bart. And they all you guys really helped me move along. I mean, Arion probably the most helped, but I mean, all of y'all had a hand in helping me along my path and learning how to make coins and make money and get everything done out here in sunny, kind of cool today, Trimaris.
That's good to see you, man.
How you doing?
Good to see you, buddy.
How you doing?
The one thing he hates to hear, though, it's the one thing he hates to hear is make it small.
Oh dear God, so many emails of make it smaller from you. How these punches look? They're just still too big. Make them smaller. It's like, damn. Always make them smaller.
What I loved was I'd be sitting there doing something. I get this message pop up, and you'd show me a picture, and you say, "This is crooked. How do I fix it?" I've been there. I've done that, and it's like, turn your graver this way and do that, and you do it. And it's like, it works.
Oh, yeah. It was a slog, but I really with the Yahoo groups were helpful, but once we had the Facebook one going, that I think has helped a lot of people immensely. It's a much easier medium to share that type of information. And yeah, same thing with Darien. It's like, how are you holding your graver? I'm like, well, man, I'm not holding my graver like that. I'm holding it like this. Well, and that was after he had gone to the art of engraving class, and we're all like, oh, we've been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But you had never had anybody sitting next to you saying, hold the graver this way.
No, not at all. Not at all. And 99% of the YouTube videos are people with pneumatic engravers. You know,
Totally
they're just
different
kind of,
animal.
yeah, they're kind of steering it, I guess, for lack of a better term. I mean, not to take away from their skill. Some of them are great artisans, but they're not really pushing, and that entirely changes the dynamics on how you hold it and what you have to do.
Yeah.
Yep. Good times.
Emmerich, are you able to share any pictures of your work?
Oh boy, I kind of knew that would come up. I really would like to, but I'm working off of a laptop That's one of 4 systems I have around here, and everything's scattered. But if you go to the Interkingdom page, you can see things on a regular basis. Of course, I have my business Alpha Officium Facebook page, and I'd refer people to that. I can't bring it right now, but you know, I'm creating things all the time. I'm getting better all the time, and you know, just I tell people stay with it.
Yep. I see Orla's comment in chat about, you know, being in the early stages of getting their guild rolling out and are looking to start on the right foot. Yeah, that's a great attitude. And the biggest advice I would have from, you know, having gone through multiple guilds and multiple kingdoms is that, you know, tailoring your guild to fit the local conditions is the best thing. And the biggest goal of any guild, I think, is not to make coins, but to make moneyers, as Emmerich has said many times. And so, you know, focusing, having the way your guild is designed and the way you do things when it comes to classes and projects into, you know, building a base of active moneyers is, I think, the most important. You know, these big projects, whether they're, you know, super detailed high relief engraving or, you know, thousands and thousands of coins, those are cool and those can be motivating, but you know, the goal is always more moneyers, active moneyers. And you know, how that fellowship develops is going to depend on the local people. You know, some groups want to have, you know, coin making night every Tuesday at Bob's house with the fridge full of beer and, you know, music and, you know, and whatever. Some groups want to have individuals hiding in their basement working on their own thing that come together and strike only at events. There's nothing wrong with either approach. They're different, and it really is a function of the people in your group and, you know, how your kingdom and local groups work. So, you know, thinking through some of that stuff, I think, is helpful.
Yeah, I just put up Emmerich's business is Alpha Officium, and I think if you Google that, you will find his stuff. What I like about Emmerich's work is the historical accuracy. He is studying coins, trying to replicate the coins from a historical perspective.
Definitely.
If I may, on that, I'm a research junkie. I admit it. I have books, tons of books. I get on average, you know, 2 to 4 new books every month, and I don't know what everyone else's production is like, but I'm up to my eye teeth and ideas, and I have a hard time staying on task. I mean, I'm averaging, and usually one new die set, usually Dark Age or something like that, every 2 to 4 weeks. So currently we make 125 different types historically, from Celtic to James, Charles I. And then we've made odd things like Napoleonics and other stuff. But I can't emphasize enough that if you can get into the bones of what you're working on, it kind of inspires you a lot more. If you understand why they did or whatever on the coin, there was a battle at sea, and so they're celebrating that battle. If you can dig in and grab that kind of research, just read, man, and you'll become inspired, and it'll help you work, I think, because you find little nuances. You wonder why there's a banner or a sword on a coin. Those things can kind of, I mean, we're already kind of do that in the SCA. We, you know, research stuff, but I think it helps to dig deep and get that kind of information.
Yeah, definitely. And a corollary to that is, if you're just thinking about making coins, you know, just flipping through books of coins can be can be very helpful in sort of helping you decide what to work on. Sometimes, and I know this has happened to Arion, and I'm sure it's happened to Emmerich. It's definitely happened to me. I'd be flipping through a book and a coin practically leaps out of the page and says, "Make me, make me!" Like that little Crusader head Knight's penny in my little presentation there. I've made that design a couple of times because it's one of those ones that just jumped out and demanded to be made.
Oh, it's just a sweet little, I think we've all made it. It's just a sweet coin.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it's simple punch work, but it makes the cutest little knight.
Such an elegant little design. Yeah. Those are from like Belgium, Netherlands, the Low Countries, 13th century-ish.
Nice. Yeah, I made one last year, and
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. But everybody's tastes are different. Maybe you're really into, Spanish coins or, Islamic coins or something else. And that's great. Do your thing. Bart's really into Crusader coins, for example. So, yeah.
Yeah, Emmerich asked me if I would be interested in doing a Augustus coin. And every Augustus coin I looked at, I said, I hate that little twerp. And then I was flipping through and I found an Augustus coin with a Sphinx on the back. And I said, okay, I'll do it.
That's the one. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I'm wondering if anybody has any more questions. We've answered a handful and we've kind of talked a lot. So,
Yeah, that's what I'd say. I always respond best to questions.
I had a quick comment. I forget what I was listening to, but they were talking about coinage as propaganda, especially during the Roman period. And they were talking about a specific leader and watching the evolution of that leader's rule by the coins. I think there were a couple of them. There was one of them was a Roman leader, and I believe they were also talking about one of the queens of England and her evolution on the coins, and how it was used as propaganda. It was absolutely fascinating. I love coinage and history. It illustrates so much more than we realize as we're passing coins around.
Yeah, that's a great point. In most times and places, the coins were a function of the state, right? A king or an emperor, or in some small number of cases, a local lord would produce coins for their territory, and it was often required that you would use the coins that the person who ruled you made. And yeah, there's plenty of examples of Roman coins showing emperors trotting upon barbarians and things like that.
It's a slightly stronger chin than they actually had.
Right. Kings holding swords in boats, all sorts of things.
Coin I had Arion make for us, and it was so my heraldry is a boar, and it is essentially Her Excellency straddling a boar with a spear through it in the spirit of St. George, with a saintly halo around her. So
Holding a balance scales.
oh yeah,
Yes. Which has multiple meanings. I used to work for the State Department of Revenue, so it's a play on that and the idea of justice. But I think I just saw a comment come through on the chat asking about carving dies. I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, so the question is, what do you consider necessary to start making and cutting dies in terms of equipment? There are a lot of different opinions on this. You can cut a die with a file and a nail. If you want to cut a really period-looking die, you're going to want a handful of punches. You can do pretty much an entire medieval alphabet with 6 or 7 punches. Punches being, short pieces of steel that you've filed and polished and then hardened. Magnification really helps. It's not necessary, but it really helps. We talked a lot about engraving earlier. Engraving is sort of a next level skill, I think most of us consider. Most period coins have a little bit of engraving on them, but you don't have to engrave. Engraving's pretty difficult. A way to hold the die, a way to put your design on the die, punches, hammers, and then eventually you'll need blanks to start. There's a lot more detail on
clay to check your progress.
Yeah. Clay or an art eraser or silly putty works really well to sort of check your progress as you go. most of us have made intro to moneying handouts where we cover all of this in great detail with like links to exactly where to buy the things we recommend. All those files are in the Interkingdom Moneyers Guild Facebook page. We have a very well organized Google Drive, thanks to Rudiger,
Yes.
who's a moneyer down in Texas, my apprentice. So I highly recommend taking a look at that. But in general, a way to hold the die, a way to flatten and polish the die, a way to put your design on the die, punches, gravers, that kind of thing. Way to check your progress, and then blanks to turn into coins.
Yeah, I just put the link up, or at least the name, the Interkingdom Moneyers Guild on Facebook. If you get into that, if you're really interested in making coins, there is a wealth of information there to get you going. And we're all available. You want to ask a question there, and we will do our best to help you out. Let me try a
And if you
screen
happen-
share. Are there any more conversation on that?
If you happen to reside in an area where there actually is a guild, there'll be links to those Facebook pages as well. Or try and find someone relatively close by that can possibly help you.
Yeah, I actually have my how-to paper open. I'll share it just real quick. I'm not going to go through it or anything, but just to sort of give you an idea of the kind of resources that are available. So this is just my little paper on how coins are made. Let's see if I can change the view on this. Sorry. Yeah, so this is a research paper that turned into a how-to handout, and I go through, and again, this is just one of many examples of different class handouts available on the Interkingdom Moneyer page, under Interkingdom Moneyers Guild Facebook page. But I sort of step through in text and in pictures, all the different fundamentals for die cutting, and striking and all that good stuff, along with historical examples. So yeah, there's lots of information out there. Any of us would be more than happy to help in detail. Making things in the sheet, cutting out blanks rather, hitting it hard with a hammer, which is the most fun.
Quite satisfying.
Yeah. And then the final product. All right, Arion.
Yeah, it's as I get older and older, I realize that I have a hell of a lot of knowledge that I don't want to die without passing on. And I mean, that's part of what I do. I want to teach people what I know, because once I'm dead, it's gone. And I found that out really the hard way with Jan. He died suddenly. And the day before he died, he sent me a list of, here's the stuff we think we should be working on. I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
Let me try screen sharing again. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, it's just it came as a shock to all of us, really. I miss him. It's whenever I visited his home, it was kind of like I used to go visit Orthodox monasteries, and it kind of had the same kind of vibe. There was a purpose there when you came to his home, and he would share abundantly of his knowledge and his skills, and that library is now closed to papers and notes and pictures and other things that have been left to us. So yeah, it's important to pass on what we have, and we have to pay attention to our friends and our mentors, because someday that will be cut off from that.
Yeah, I was fortunate that Jan left everything, all of his dies, all of his punches, all of his books to the Moneyers Guild of Antir. So he's still teaching me stuff. When I want to learn how to do something, I look through his dies and I pull the die out that is closest to that, and I study it and I say, oh, that's how you do that. So I'm still learning. And whenever people want to learn how to make a punch that he has made, I take close-up pictures and I explain it to them and say, here's how I think he made it. So he's still teaching people. All right, let me try to screen share again and see if I can show you some pictures of my work. Here's my personal coin. I do a lot of basic, simple line engraving. When people want a coin, I give them three choices. I can say period accurate if you want period accurate. I can give you SCA arms. I can do complete fantasy, and this is pretty much complete fantasy. There's a story behind it, but we don't have time for that. This is because I started with 20 years of experience that Jan had. I'm able to do this without learning the hard way. This is high relief Greek Scythian. And the head on the left was actually the easier of the two to do. Okay, so I just want to flip through some stuff here. This is one where we were playing with what type of alloy can you use? What type of alloy did they use for tin bronze? We started off with 12% tin bronze and found out very quickly that the face collapses after about 20 strikes. So then we hopped it up to 20% tin bronze, which is kind of it's a balance point between hardness and brittle. If you go any higher, it gets brittle. If you go any lower, it doesn't work. And we found a book that analyzed all the extant dyes, and yep, it was 20% tin bronze. This one, Saif will recognize this. I did this for his Laurel. These are two of the Saif era. This one I did initially as a award, and then continued on. Saif got to use it, and now Morrigan up in Avacol is getting coins struck with it. But I mean, this, you can't see it here, but the laurel wreath goes in and out. It's not one flat plane. It goes in and out and undulates. It's a crazy amount of work to do. And again, I can do this because I started with somebody else's 20 years of experience. When we talk about historical, okay, this is one of my favorites. The original here has the barbarian on a horse, and it says fel temp reparatio. This is the end of the Roman Empire, and it's saying return to happy times. We're spearing barbarians, but the barbarians were actually winning. And then here's a Roman coin I did for somebody. This one is one that Emmerich and I worked on. And this is later in my career where I'm actually able to more or less replicate the look of the coin that actually was. So this is a period accurate. And then this is one I did, a Byzantine style. This is pretty much all punch work. There's very little engraving at all going on there. And we talked about clay impressions. Here's a clay impression off of the Celtic. This is a kind of high relief, but it's all in one plane. And this is, Emmerich, tell us about these dies.
These are what you would call, were made in kind of a very close fashion to a set of Celtic dies. And in particular, this was an order request for a display that was done the Isle of Jersey, where they found this huge Celtic era coin hoard under a hedge, and it was on display and slowly dismembered over a number of years. They took each coin out individually of this huge mass that they had. And we ended up making a set of dies for the lobby for them for pay coin. And then Arion cut this set, replicate the general look of dies of the period. And it worked out really well. And then we got paid for it, and we got a little word fame. I put everyone's name on who was part of this project there. It was 3 or 4 of us. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. And fun.
So here's the dies that I cut off of that based on the coin. What I like about Celtic art is if you look on Greek coins, they went out, they studied the horse, they got the variety of horse, and it was perfect. I've had people look at Greek coins and say, oh, that's that type of horse. The Celts, on the other hand, I think they went out and smoked some pot and then they did a horse spirit. It's the spirit of the horse. It is not the horse. And then the head on this is, to me, that's Celtic Elvis. And then here is our host coin, where you can see the Baroness spearing the Baron and holding the balance in her hands.
I'm honestly not that terrifying, I promise.
But she has a halo. She has a halo there, so it's all good.
It's all about the propaganda.
Well, I have also rationalized it as so Her Excellency's persona is Andalusian Moorish, and so she's taking care of the unclean by
Ridding the world of you. Okay.
Right. If there's not a pun involved in something that we do, know that we are deathly ill and should probably be admitted to hospital immediately.
Right, here's one I did recently. You can see the coin on the right, it says Corona Pestilence 2020 with a coronavirus inside and a plague doctor. And if you'd like that coin, Emmerich still has the dies and he can sell one to you. And I like dragons, so I keep doing dragons all the time. I wanted to show you a die rather than a coin here, just to show you the detail on it. And then you can also do other stuff. This is the Black Lion seal of Antir. This is actually a very thick chunk of leaded brass. Leaded brass cuts like butter. If you want an easy thing to cut, this is just sweet to cut. And then another thing you can do, these are, you can make, this is a matrix, and these are all different Scythian plaques that are on my Scythian outfit. And this is how they were made. They were just hammered into the matrix. And here is probably my best work. I did this dragon for Tom Maringer. He's doing coins for the Game of Thrones. And this was a stupid amount of work, but I'm very proud of it.
You should be. That is really a beautiful piece.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing and we can go back to talking.
Seeing the work that you guys do is awe-inspiring, and I had not previously wanted to make coins. I kind of want to make coins now. This is really fascinating.
I know somebody who can teach you local.
Oh, yeah. So I did have a question. There's a gentleman by the name of John, and the question was for Saeed. I mean, you pretty much started coins and Trimaris all by yourself. I mean, can you talk about some of the challenges that you faced, and maybe offer John of the Hill some advice if he wants to start a guild in Bacchus?
Well, I hope you have better luck than I've had starting a guild, but it was difficult. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was very frustrating at times. It was very much one step forward, and then I felt like 5 or 6 back, and then I would make progress, and then I would go back again. If this is something you're truly interested in and wanting to learn, and so long as you maintain that drive and understand that you're not going to have someone there to hold your hand, as it were, that any kind of feedback you're going to get is going to be made after the fact. But now, I mean, I guess you can record some video while you're doing it and send it off. We kind of really didn't have that when I started. Maybe we did, but maybe it was a little fancier than I could figure out how to use. But everything I did was via email with the old Yahoo group, and then the Facebook and the Facebook messages. I mean, with Emmerich, it was all the emails constantly, and his 20% smaller. Darien with his, this way with the graver, and try it this way. I was working my very first coin that I tried to make that had any kind of relief. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And Arion was like, well, which one are you trying to do? I'm like, well, I'm trying to do this one. And like a week later, I get this legal size piece of paper with a blown up coin with handwriting all over it going, okay, use this graver here, dig about this much here, use this graver over here, and you want to do this over here. And he basically gave me a little roadmap to follow to do a high relief on one of my second or third die I made. So as he said, he had 20 years of prior learning from Jan. Well, I had a little bit of a leg up from him. Talk to us on the Munier's page. We understand you're going to be frustrated, especially if you're kind of out there by yourself. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be frustratingly slow at times. But if you can get out or go to an event and come find someone else, or even just whoever's closest to you, if you can start to establish a relationship that'll help you along, it'll go a long way. Especially again nowadays, with you can record a little video message and just email it or send it Facebook Messenger. You'll get feedback a lot faster than what I could get feedback at the time. So I would get feedback, and I'm like, well, now it's like 2 or 3 days later. I'm not quite sure what I did the first time. But as far as establishing a guild, some people have better luck than others. I've done numerous classes, both in Kingdom, Gulf Wars. I've held numerous workshops at my house. I have some people who are happy just to show up and roll out ingots on my rolling mill. I have some people who are just happy to sit there with the hammer and punch out the flans for me. I've had one person so far in the years I've done this who actually seems interested in cutting a die. And just with COVID and everything else, we just haven't had a chance to hook back up over this last year. So I mean, unless you have your heart dead set on setting up a guild, I mean, do it because you enjoy it. And if the guild happens, it happens, really.
Yeah, a guild is kind of a means to an end, that end being more people doing coin stuff.
Yes.
It isn't the only way. And there's lots of ways it can look.
And like I said, while I don't have an official guild, if I say, hey, I'm moneying, I'm having a workshop over the weekend because I'm making coins for the crown, I'll have people show up. They'll cast my ingots for me. They'll roll the ingots. They'll punch out the blanks. And all I've got to do at that point is cut the die, which granted is the most time consuming portion of it. But all that grunt work, if I were to do it individually, would take me days and days to accomplish. And they get almost all of it done on a weekend. Look, there's a cooler with some beer that I don't like to drink. Why don't you drink that for me?
Yeah, I think we've all had that experience with people who, don't necessarily want to cut dies or, can't do some other part of the project. Like I've definitely had people who, they want to strike, but for the life of them, they just can't get a good strike. And sometimes, striking isn't for you, and that's okay. But those same people, there was an individual in North Shield, for example, who had a very badly damaged shoulder. So swinging a hammer was just not in the cards. That person is still part of the guild, right? Like holding the dies, swapping coins off the dies. That's all important work that goes to making these projects happen. And I certainly feel that any organization, guild or not, should be inclusive by default, right? You want to have people be involved at whatever level they're able to or comfortable at, and try and push a little bit. But
and to go off of your comment about the interest, you're going to have to be that driving force, as it were, to get that ball rolling as you start to post about it, as you start to generate coins. You will have people like Her Excellency said earlier, I never really wanted to make a coin before, but it sounds interesting.
I remember well the first 3 years that I was doing this on my own. I felt pretty isolated. I had one person that kind of expressed some interest, but it was mostly just to sit there and drink beer. But the truth is, where there are a couple of you can get together and start getting things going, that works out nicely. It works out to your advantage, a division of labor, as it were. But it's sometimes, in isolation, you have to be the jack of all trades, and that's just how it goes. But if you can get one other person, you'll find that the sparks really start to spread out, and that.
Yeah, I want to hop off a little bit. There was some discussion about this guy really wanted to strike coins but couldn't. When I first got my setup, I asked Jan how tall his stump was, how tall everything was, and I did everything exactly the way he did, and I couldn't get a good strike for crap. And then I realized Jan is 6 inches shorter than me. I raised up everything 6 inches, and I could get a good strike.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, and I think a lot of these things are magnified when the scale of the project increases, right? Like some of these big projects, like the 12,000 North Shield did, and the 15,000 I've done in my Barony, like that just doesn't happen with one person by themselves. It's not possible, you know. And in all of those cases, we had a small number of people cutting dies and contributing to the creation of blanks and all that kind of stuff, and a much larger group of people involved in the striking. Some people would come through and strike 1 coin, 2 coins, 10 coins, whatever. Any contribution counts. And one of the things I feel very strongly about in these projects is that whenever they're presented to the barons, the baronial seat or the crown or whoever, there's always I always have a list of who did what, and I want to include everybody that contributed, even if they only struck a single coin, because this doesn't happen with one person. Just at a certain scale, it's just not possible.
Yeah, and when you process up to hand off the coins, I find everybody there who has been doing anything in moneying and say, we're walking up together because you were part of this.
I have some more coin pictures if people want to look at those.
Sure.
Again, how much did that 12,000 coins weigh?
I don't know that we weighed it. It was the boxes. It arrived in the blanks arrived in at least 2 boxes because they hit the weight limit. It was like 60 pounds or something.
Were they aluminum?
Those are brass.
They were. The brass. Oh, gee.
The 12,000 were brass. Yeah.
You're crazy, man. You're just crazy.
It wasn't just me. Like I said, I see Master Bard has joined, and he annealed every single one of those blanks and struck about a third of them. Yeah, let me see.
Can we bring Bart in and have him talk a little bit? Have anyone worked with new gold? I think that's basically the brass alloy we're using, isn't it?
We didn't use new gold for the 12,000. I know Master Emmerich works in new gold. Yeah.
I work in new gold almost every day.
Yeah. The brass we used for the 12,000, I think, was 360 brass was the alloy. It works. New gold is better in terms of ease of working with. It's more expensive though.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to flip through some pictures real quick, talk about them. This is the Middle Kingdom 50-year token that we made. These are my dies for that project, and everyone else who made dies were sort of based on the same design. And one of my goals for that project was to have it to be completable with only using punches. And the only part of this that is engraved at all are these little ropes on the side of the gate. And I told people those were optional, but some folks managed to make it work just with punches. So you can cut this die with a small rectangle, a dot punch, a small crescent, and a big crescent for the O. And then whatever your mint mark is. My mint mark happens to be an ermine tail. Oh, and you need a triangle for the bottom of the gate. So that's what, 4 or 5 punches. So that's a very small number of tools. You can do this is a very period coin. It's based off of half pennies of Elizabeth I. And we did them in copper. Next here is my Prager I did for my Barony, sort of similar to Jan's, though not as nice. Just another fun example. It's a cool coin to do. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about heraldry on coins. So what I end up doing, a lot of the coins I produce, probably like 60% of them are based off of feudal coins. And feudal coins are very, very commonly, when I say feudal, I mean like 13th, 14th century primarily. That's where you start seeing heraldry on coins. So they're great for SCA purposes because you can take heraldry, put it in the middle of a coin, and put some text around it, and have a very period style coin. So this is the populous badge of the Middle Kingdom. So it's a dragon passing over a pale, and then that's the motto that the kingdom uses. And then another example of this is the coins I did for my barony. So these were the ones I did 15,000 of. That's our baronial heraldry right there. Sort of split field, the big laurel wreath, and then a little tower, and then just Cinnabar, which is the name of the barony, Civitas for city, and then this side is just the baron's name and a letter for him. But again, these sorts of things can be done relatively simply. Maybe a dozen punches, a little bit of engraving if you want to, but a lot of these things could be done with punch work. I feel like this, sort of feudal design is relatively accessible. And then here's my one take at Roman. I did for a friend who is getting knighted. Bart just posted a video link. And yes, it was 360 brass. Let's see what that YouTube video is. So we talked about this earlier before he was able to join. This is the presentation of the 10,000 pennies for Penzik in North Shield in 2010. So if you click on that link, it's about a 10-second video. You can see, what it looks like when you pour 10,000 pennies out of a chest. It kind of keeps on going and going. We did the same thing for the 12,000 when we presented them to the Crown of North Shield for 50 year, and yeah, it's always fun creating these huge volumes of coins.
Well, it looks like Bart has joined us. Bart, you have done some amazing research on different alloys. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Which alloys do you want to talk about?
Yes.
I mean, you're the master of Billin. I think that's the thing that more people need to know about.
Yes and no, because Billin really is crabby.
It's awesome period crap, though.
It's period, but it silver, really fine silver wants to be a coin.
It's a joy
Billin
to
does
strike.
not.
Yeah.
You have to force Billin into being a coin.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel horrible. I don't see the young guy's name. Carson.
Yeah, I don't think he's on tonight, but yeah, he's doing Billin too. Yeah.
He's doing Billin too. And he's doing like 50% silver Billin,
Mm-hmm.
which apparently is much less crap.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So Billin, low silver copper alloy. And I found that I can't get it to work better. I can't get it to turn white below 20%, even though theoretically the maximum is 18% silver. I think the problem is my ability to weigh precisely. Brian's shaking his head yes, because he knows how crude my system is.
You're also just right about the 18% being it's like 17-18% is the eutectic point. Below that, all the silver is literally dissolved in the copper.
Right, I think it's actually like 18.5.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do 20, which is nice because you make a silver-looking coin for 1/5 the price of a silver coin, which is attractive to us and attractive to medieval feudal lords for obvious reasons. I wasn't really prepared to give a talk on this. Anyway, I was going to sit back and listen. And originally, my name on this thing was my D&D character, Wang Hong Wen. Anyway, so Billin really works kind of like frozen gravy filled with frozen peas. As the high concentration copper, low concentration silver cools, the copper freezes out in the solution first and forms lenticular globules. So little tiny beans of copper that are like 99% plus copper. And you end up with a gravy of 72% silver. So if you let it cool right, you end up with 72% silver on the outside, and the inside is much, much higher concentration copper. And when you actually just cut the alloy, it's pink on the inside. And that's why a lot of period coins have peck marks. Because people are trying to cut into the coin to see whether it's pink inside, because then they know they've been bamboozled, so to speak. a good term? Anyway, yeah. But if you do it, if you get the mix right, like 20% plus, and you let it cool right so that the surface tension of the silver happens, you end up with something that looks like 72% silver and is not. And it makes a really cool looking coin for 1/5 the cost, which is really awesome for us. And we've gotten so our royal pounds are all billing, so that we can give our king and queen a really cool coin, and it looks like silver. And better yet, when you do the, how to put it, money-er self-appreciation game of pouring money into its own hand, it sounds like silver.
Mhm.
It's really cool. It's really cool. It's
It's
a cool metal, but man,
it's a bear.
the bear, it work
Yeah.
hardened so freaking fast
Hmm.
that it basically is, you get to move it twice, and if you move it a third time, it cracks.
I remember one of the first times we were working together on using Billin to make the royal pound at an event, and the blanks had come out from the cutter fairly cupped, and we're having some trouble striking them. And we're like, well, let's, why don't we try and flatten them before striking? And you're just like, that's a terrible idea. It'll work hard. So
At one point, I found a scientific paper called, I think, The Morphology of Silver Coperic Alloys. And they were taking 2 slugs of what was effectively Billin, smashing them together, and then twisting them under pressure. And the researchers said it's remarkable at the rate this material work hardens. And it is. I mean, yeah. Whack, whack, crack. That's the official term.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another example of a sort of, I don't know, subspecialty or way you can take moneying a step further in a different direction, right? Like going through these really awesome period alloys that are really hard to work with, but were very, very common in the Middle Ages. People in power were often looking for ways to make their money go further, and by diluting your silver with a little copper and telling people that it's the same coin, you can push your actual silver further along.
Yeah, if you're getting ready to start a war, you call in all your silver coins, you add 50% copper, now you can buy more soldiers.
Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Earlier I showed those halfpenny dies we did for Tom, the little knight's head penny that we did unhardened and just got destroyed by like 480 strikes. Yeah.
The 3 of us running off to the Laurel meeting and leaving poor Thomas striking coins. Coming back, and the dies were cupped.
Yeah. The end had swollen out, and the end the face was cupped because the blank would actually like fit into the die face. They were so destroyed. And this is, like what was he, like 16 at the time? 16-year-old kid finishing up our coin for us while we're in the Laurel meeting. Yeah,
He had wrecked the dice and felt horrible.
Yeah.
Didn't know what was going on.
It's not your fault. It's my fault.
We didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah, it was a surprise because we had done penny-sized coins on Billin with unhardened 1018 before successfully, but with the half penny size, it's like has to do with the ratio of the size of the coin to the size of the die. The face is less supported, so it took more damage.
You'd think they'd be easier.
Yeah, in a way.
Nothing about that project was easy.
Yeah.
As I was cutting the halfpenny blanks out, and due to my own stupidity, when I did a test weigh of them, I had literally, so I weighed 20 and then divided them by 10. And so then I'm cutting out blanks and weighing them to see if I have enough blanks. And I'm like, oh my God, how many stupid blanks do I have to make? And I just keep making more and more blanks. Like, this can't be right. And then I redid it. And I'm like, oh. And at that point, I had 1.5 times enough to do the royal palm.
Yeah.
I'd done my math wrong. It hadn't caught it till I was a lot of dumb in that project.
Yeah.
That
That's
might
kind of
just
how we
be
ended up
my
doing
project.
13,000 for Penzic that one year. We miscounted and ended up with 1,500 more coins than we'd planned. So, yeah.
That was a lot of brass to in there.
Yeah.
But doable. The cool
Yeah.
thing is, it's doable, and you can make pretty gold coins. People like that.
Yeah. All these big crazy things, whether it's the high relief engraving, the large numbers of coins, the cool period alloys, it's all doable, and we're all more than happy to help. We want more weirdos like us making lots of coins.
And you know, I don't have a complex setup to do any of this.
Mhm.
I think the most complex tool I have, I did buy a really nice rolling mill.
Mhm.
But that's it. That's not that bad.
I got an electric rolling mill out of the scrap bin a couple years ago.
A scrap bin.
I got very, very lucky living near a university.
So the other thing I'd like to say from a conversation I heard when I first signed on, years ago, this guy named Emmerich chewed on me about the idea of creating a North Shield guild. And I was about as anti-guild and anti-household as any ska person could conceivably be. I am a small group guy. I've never lived in a barony. Probably am never going to live in a barony. And I have seen guilds and households destroy small groups over and over and over in my years in the SCA. We don't need to discuss how many years that is. And Emmerich was like, you got to form a guild in North Shore. I'm like, nope, guilds are bad. Guilds wreck them. Not going to do it. And he convinced me over a weekend that I should do it. And I went back to North Shield with a set of dies and some coin blanks, and we started a guild. And we got a guild charter, and we got it officially accepted by the crown. And in the guild charter is the requirement for the guild to produce a pound of coins every reign for the crown. There wouldn't be much coining in North Shield if we hadn't done it. That was the best thing we had ever done. It gives you a goal. It gives you a project. Gives you deadlines. It has been wonderful. If anything, COVID has taught me the lack of deadlines is a killer for these kinds of activities. I'm not sure anybody in North Shield would achieve the heights and pointing we had without the guild. It was the best thing we have ever done. And without Emmerich parading you. The form one. I'll get a reaction out of you yet. Anyway.
Yeah, that Emmerich guy, he's kind of poking at people, getting people to do stuff all the time.
And it's
Yeah.
weird. It's way back.
I get people to paint that fence white one more time.
I think me and Emmerich
Bart, I will
were at
say
the same
this,
event back in '86.
Yeah. Ancient history, man. But I'll say this, Bart. It's a testament to you being an honorable fellow and making nice things happen. So, my hat's off to you, sir. And
Thanks. What?
All right. I'd like to thank everybody on the panel. Before we've been going on about an hour, or a little over an hour and a half, and I have enjoyed this talk so much. if any of you want to have final words, I will offer them to you, and then I'll end the recording, and we can chat as much as we want. Hang on, everybody who is in the class, feel free to unmute when that happens, and you don't have to worry. Would any of you like final words before we end the recording?
My final words would be to thank Emmerich for being the father of moneying and getting all this going and quietly behind the scenes making stuff happen.
And I will say this, while I have preached the gospel for sure, it has been the other people out there making things happen. And I want to thank you for making my dream come true of spreading money throughout the SCA.
Coins are fun. Making them is even more fun. You want to know how to make coins, join the IKMG page and reach out.
Well, thank you.